Week 12 of the fantasy football season. His running back starts at every matchup this week. Thursday night, Buffalo Bills at the Houston Texans. James Cook obviously locked in, one of the better running backs in fantasy football this week. I know it is a tougher matchup at the Houston Texans, but he's a matchup-proof running back. He could do everything in between the tackles, catch the football out of the backfield, where last week he had a 25-yard receiving touchdown. And this offense is starting to get things going a little bit, so an easy start. Woody Marks, a fringe option last week in a plus matchup. He didn't do much in that ball game, was Woody Marks. This week, I know it's a good matchup versus Buffalo, where they're one of the worst run defenses in the league, believe it or not, on the season. But like I said, Woody Marks, even in a good matchup last week, didn't do much. And if they're trailing early and often, even though I know he catches a football out of the backfield, I just don't think the upside is that great. And Nick Chubb, the last couple weeks, he's definitely taken a backseat to Woody Marks in the running game. So he's a sit this week. Indianapolis Colts at the Kansas City Chiefs. Jonathan Taylor, he's a must-start, best running back this season in fantasy football. Matchup-proof in between the tackles. He's doing everything and even catching the football a little bit more this season as well, with Daniel Jones in there, quarterback. So this week, even in a tough one at Arrowhead, he's a start. Kareem Hunt, he's a fringe option. Last week was one of the better games of the season for Kareem Hunt, and he's been the best running back between him, Isaiah Pacheco, and Brashard Smith this season for this Kansas City Chiefs team. So this week, I have Hunt as a fringe option, where he don't have a high ceiling, but still a guy you could lock in 7 to 10 fantasy points most week. Isaiah Pacheco, he's a sit. We haven't seen much from him all season long. He's been banged up. He missed the last 2 games. What a knee injury was Isaiah Pacheco. But this week, even if he does return, he wasn't getting goal line touches regardless with Kareem Hunt there. So he's a sit. Seattle Seahawks at the Tennessee Titans. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet starts. Walker had his best game of the season last week. He did a little bit of everything, catching the football out of the backfield, found the end zone in that game. And this week in a slam dunk matchup at the Titans, he's a start. And Zach Charbonnet, I think if they get off to a lead early, is Seattle. Second half, they're going to run a lot, and that's where Charbonnet comes into play, tiring defenses out, running at the defenses with his physicality. And also, he's the goal line back as well for Seattle. Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears are sits. There's just not enough upside in this offense for this Tennessee Titan team. And Seattle, one of the better defenses in the league this season. So I know Spears, for his case, at least he catches a football. With Pollard, that's been totally pretty much out of his game the last couple seasons. But like I said, there's not much upside with these two running backs and their sits. Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Jones a start. Since he came off IR, he's been playing pretty good football as Aaron Jones, doing a little bit of everything for this Minnesota Viking team. And this week, you know, the juice isn't going to be flowing versus former team that cut him loose and replaced him with Josh Jacobs a couple off seasons ago. So he's a start this week. And Jordan Mason did find the end zone last week, but he's definitely taken a backseat over the last few weeks since Jones returned from injury. So Jordan Mason, pretty much, he's a touchdown-dependent backup running back on this Viking team. He's a sit. Josh Jacobs, he left the game early with a knee injury in Week 11 at the New York Giants. And right now, we'll see if he plays in this game. It's a knee contusion, and there's a lot of swelling. And when Matt LaFleur, head coach, was asked if he was going to play, they were going to pretty much say, take a wait-and-see approach. So right now, to me, it's 50-50. Jacobs plays in this ball game. So if he does sit, Emmanuel Wilson will step right in. And last week, filling in, he had a decent ball game. It was Emmanuel Wilson. We've seen him this season have some good games in between the tackles. He's a physical running back. Could catch the football a little bit out of the backfield. So this week, if Jacobs is down, I think Wilson's a solid start for fantasy owners. New York Jets at the Baltimore Ravens. Breece Hall will start. Last week was a down game for Breece Hall, but maybe this offense could improve a little bit now with Tyrod Taylor coming in at quarterback and Justin Fields. He's an athletic quarterback, no doubt about it. I think he's got a pretty good arm, but still getting into the playbook, making plays, and making the right decisions have just been a problem throughout Fields' career. So now we'll see if Breece Hall could catch some passes out of the backfield in this offense with the veteran Tyrod Taylor in there. Derrick Henry will start each and every week. Ever since Lamar returned to the lineup, Derrick Henry's going out there putting up elite numbers. Last week, over 100 yards, found the end zone. And this week in an easy matchup versus Jets, I like the upside for Henry again. New York Giants at the Detroit Lions, 50-50 split in the backfield with Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary. Last week, they both had decent ball games for this New York Giant team, but this week a tougher matchup. And I know last week was a tough matchup versus the Packers, and they played well, but this week on the road, going to Detroit, coming off a bad loss, and Detroit's top 10 in a lot of categories. on defense. I just don't see major upside for Tracy and Singletary, so they're fringe options. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery are starts. Gibbs last week didn't do much on the ground, but had over 100 yards receiving with Jahmyr Gibbs. So Gibbs, he's a dual threat, one of the best running backs in the league. And this week, in an easy matchup versus the Giants, I'm starting David Montgomery, second half of the game. I think he could be the grinder if they're up early and often. Monty still could catch the football a little bit out of the backfield. But obviously, I know he's been a touchdown-dependent running back. But this week, with 14 on bye in a pretty good matchup where the game script should be in Montgomery's favor. He's a start this week. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Bears. Jalen Warren, he left the game as well last week with an ankle injury. He said he could have returned and came back in, but obviously that wasn't the case. So it's been a good season for Jalen Warren. He's been the bell cow all season long for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So if he gives it a go, obviously he's a start. And Kenneth Gainwell, if he's the starter in this one. We saw Gainwell could do a little bit of everything. And in last week's ball game versus the Bengals, he had 2 touchdowns in that one. So Gainwell, in between the tackles, he can make plays, catching the football out of the backfield. And going back earlier in the season, he had a big game where he started versus the Minnesota Vikings. DeAndre Swift to start. It's been a solid year for him in this offense with Ben Johnson, first-year head coach, and putting in this whole new offensive system. And this whole offense, for the most part, most guys are going out there and producing. So this week, even in a tougher matchup with the Steelers coming in, he's a start. Kyle Monangai, he's a sit. If Monangai was the starter, I think he could be a top 15, 20 option weekly. He's a hard-nosed runner, is Monangai. I know he found the end zone last week, but at this point, he's a backup and a touchdown-dependent backup at that, where obviously it's tough to trust. So he's a sit. New England Patriots at the Cincinnati Bengals. Trevion Henderson a start. Last couple weeks, he's been a touchdown machine, and he's been showing his home run playmaking ability on full display now the last 2 games. Here's Trevion Henderson. So last week, 3 touchdowns in that game versus the New York Jets. Going back a couple weeks ago with Tampa, he had a big game as well in Week 10 where he found the end zone twice. So this week, one of the worst defenses in the league, it's Cincinnati. He's a star. Ramondre Stevenson, if he plays in this game, I just hope Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff don't put him back as the starting running back for this New England Patriot team, because I think it's Henderson's backfield, and he's a guy going out there and putting up big numbers. So if Stevenson returns, I wouldn't trust him. He's a sit. And now to the Bengals, Chase Brown a start. No competition in the backfield. Chase Brown could do a little bit of everything, and this offense has been way improved over the last few weeks since Joe Flacco got traded to Cincinnati. And also as well, Joe Burrow should be back in next week's game. So with all those factors, even in a tougher matchup versus New England, he's a start this week for me is Chase Brown. Cleveland Browns at the Vegas Raiders. Quinshon Judkins a start. I know Judkins the last month of the season, he's only had 1 game out of 4 with double-digit fantasy points. But this week, a good matchup at the Vegas Raiders. Javonte Williams came off a good running game at this Raider defense. And this Raider defense really can't stop anyone. I know a few weeks ago, Thursday night, they shut down the Broncos offense. But I think this week, with Shedeur Sanders in there, quarterback in his first career start, Quinshon Judkins, he's going to go out there. He's going to get a heavy workload in this one. And like I said, this run defense isn't all great. And Ashton Jeanty is start for me. I know last week, he didn't even rush for 10 yards in that ball game versus the Dallas Cowboys, where they thought they could just go out there, throw the football in Dallas, but they stopped them early and often throwing the football. And Jeanty, it was good to see him have five catches out of the backfield, but it was a nothing ball game for him versus Dallas. But this week, I think they go back to the run a little bit more. Obviously, this is a physical Brown defense, but Ashton Jeanty, he's a good running back, and I think this week they're going to get him the football more and focus on it, because we know this Cleveland Brown offense isn't in the same ballpark as that Cowboy offense, where this will be a grinded out, close ball game. The Jaguars at the Arizona Cardinals. Travis Etienne a start. Bashal Tutin got hurt in that ball game with an ankle injury, where he was playing good football as well in the victory versus the Los Angeles Chargers, where they dominated 35-6 in that one and dominated on the ground. So this week in a great matchup with Arizona, and Tutin not looking like he's going to play in this one. Etienne a start. Trey Benson, we'll see if he returns this week finally to the lineup for this Arizona Cardinal team is Trey Benson. Trey Benson, we know preseason there was a lot of hype. A couple of times we've seen him get some touches this season. He was pretty good. But this knee injury's taking longer than expected, and also they're not going to push it, where this Cardinal team's obviously been out of it for the majority of the season. So if he plays, he's a start. And Bam Knight, Michael Carter pretty much splitting once again in the backfield in Arizona. Bam Knight, I know last week he had a good ball game, but if Bam Knight don't find the end zone, he's pretty much a non-existent running back for fantasy owners. He's a sitter. Michael Carter, he was playing that third down, passing downs role, and this week versus Jacksonville game, they could be trailing early and often. He's a sit. Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. Saquon Barkley, the last couple weeks, his numbers are going up just a little bit. And this Eagle team starting to figure things out slowly offensively. And this week, they're versus Dallas. Their defense hasn't been good a majority of the season. I know they got a lot of reinforcements. Quinton Williams they traded for. Logan Wilson traded for. Overshown back. Malik Hooker back in the lineup. But Saquon Barkley, I think he goes out there fast track. This could be a high-scoring game. And he's a start this week. And Javonte Williams a start as well. Javonte Williams, he's been a solid running back all season long for this Dallas Cowboy team, coming off his biggest carry load of the season in that ball game Monday night versus the Vegas Raiders. And he looks solid once again. It's Javonte Williams. And the only thing I want to see from Williams is catching the football a little bit more out of the backfield. But Dallas, if they want to keep Philly's offense off the field in this ball game and tire this great defense out, I think they're going to run the football a lot in this game. Even if it's effective or not, Javonte, there's no competition over there in Dallas. Jaden Blue hasn't panned out. Miles Sanders out for the season. And Malik Davis, nothing more than a change of pace back here and there. So he's a start this week. Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. Bijan Robinson locked in as a start week. We last week went out there, had a monster game versus the Carolina Panthers. And it was good to see Bijan not get vultured at the goal line by Tyler Algier. So that was the only problem with Bijan. Getting vultured a lot at the goal line this season, but this week in a great matchup indoors at New Orleans, one of the worst teams in the league. And I know Kirk Cousins in there quarterback now for Atlanta. I still think Bijan, he's going to go out there and put up his numbers. Alvin Kamara, a fringe option. It's been a down year for this offense and Kamara as a whole. And you thought Kamara coming into the year could be a great PPR guy, but obviously that hasn't been the case, and his better years are behind him. But this week in a pretty good matchup with Atlanta coming in, he's a fringe option. Sunday night, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Los Angeles Rams. Bucky Irvin, we'll see if he returns. Last week he was trying to get back with the shoulder and the ankle injury he's been dealing with for multiple weeks is Bucky Irvin. But we know he's a hard-nosed runner, good receiver out of the backfield as well. So if he's back in action, he's a start. And if not, Rashad White, Sean Tucker, they've been a good 1-2 combo in the backfield. White being more of a receiving back than in between the tackle back, and Sean Tucker, the physical in between the tackle running back, and also could catch the football out of the backfield, where we saw him on a wheel route last week find the end zone, and he had 3 total touchdowns in that ball game in Buffalo, where he had a breakout performance in that one. So like I said, all these backs, depending on plays or starts in this one. Kyren Williams a start. It's been a good season for Kyren Williams, even on limited touches some weeks. He's going out there and putting his numbers up as Kyren Williams. So Kyren, he could do it all as well in between the tackles, even though he's a smaller back, catch the football out of the backfield, and he fits this McVay system like a glove, and that's why they paid him a nice extension, 3 years, $33 million in training camp. And the final game of the week, Carolina Panthers at the 49ers, Monday Night Football. Rico Dotto, he's been one of the best backs in all pro football this season. Some big games early in the season, 2 games in a row, week 5, week 6, over 200 yards from scrimmage, and pretty much his floor has been 15 fantasy points for Rico Dotto. So this week in a pretty good matchup at San Francisco, where obviously they've lost Nick Bosa and Fred Warner for the season going back multiple weeks. He's a must-start. And Chuba Hubbard, nothing more than a backup running back now for this Carolina Panther team. I know Hubbard got a nice contract last season, an extension, but now obviously Rico Dotto, he was too good to deny as a starter. So Hubbard's the backup as it, and Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, we know he's one of the best running backs in all pro football and fantasy football. And this season, he's going out there putting up numbers. And this week versus former team, he'll do it once again, I believe. That's running back start sit every matchup for week 12 of the fantasy football season.